So in this video, I want to throw my hat into the ring and talk about hypnotic language. Hypnotists, hypnotherapists, therapists, coaches, NLPs love hypnotic language. I don't know what it is, but we seem to have a real zeal to sound like a hypnotist, to use some sort of language that is going to instantly hypnotize somebody and have them quit smoking in just one sentence. I get the fancy guys because I used to be obsessed with it too. So in this video, let me show you how you can use hypnotic language patterns to achieve your desired result with clients. So hypnotic language, guys, let's just do a quick recap. What it does, it's really used to induce trance, used to induce hypnosis. Maybe you can use hypnotic language to hide suggestions. And when I say hypnotic language, I'm talking about like the NLP meta models. I'm talking about the basic hypnosis language, the Ericksonian language. It's all the same, guys. Maybe hypnotic language can be used to relax a client or hypnotize a client or even create some suggestions for like stop smoking or anxiety. These are just quick examples. That's what hypnotic language is sold to us to do. But what I want to talk about is what it really does, guys. Number one, hypnotic language, and I just made a video about this previously. It's what it does is it triggers psychotic insight. And realistically, this is the scientific term for it. You sound like an idiot. Using hypnotic language with a client, even if it's just to hypnotize, you become extremely obvious. And psychotic insight, if you haven't watched that past video that we did about 3 or 4 videos ago, psychotic insight is your client's resistance. Once you start using hypnotic language, even in the context of therapy, it comes across as strange and weird and not in a good way. You sound like an idiot. That's why we don't tell anyone to use hypnotic language. It is too obvious. Once you trigger psychotic insight, you will trigger a client's defenses because maybe they're not ready to go. Maybe they're a little bit resistant to go into trance. And you go from talking like a human being, which is more applicable in the way you should be doing it, to leaning forward, gazing into your client's eyes, using all different types of trance words and suggestions and long, ambiguous sentences that make no sense, that just confuse your clients. When I say confusion, I'm not talking about the good confusion that trance creates. I'm talking about the bad confusion that resistance creates, which has your client thinking, why are you talking like that? I don't know what you mean. They start getting confused and frustrated because they can't follow along, and it achieves nothing except trigger psychotic insight. So as soon as you use hypnotic language, guys, and this could even be like, I know some mentors talk about using hypnotic language in sales pages and on website, all the same thing, guys. It doesn't do anything. It's sold the way that it should, but it doesn't do anything except trigger psychotic insight. Number two, really makes your attempt obvious. If you want to really create resistance, go into using any sort of hypnotic language. I don't care how advanced it is or who taught you what the words are. Your attempt to either hypnotize or therapize your client becomes too obvious. Thus, the conscious mind kicks in. You don't bypass it by confusion. It kicks in and it starts to resist your efforts and also changes the flow of conversation. This is always funny. I always sort of have to giggle to myself when I hear a hypnotist who's just learnt, like a very basic hypnosis course, and they try and use hypnotic language in everyday terms. It doesn't fit the context of social advice. It doesn't fit the context of anything outside of therapy. But even in therapy, it doesn't fit there either because you do sound like an idiot. So it changes the flow of conversation. You want to be talking like a human being because that is the best way to bypass the conscious mind because you're not alerting it. Now, again, you have to learn how to do this. And again, hypnotic language, it goes ahead to try and fix the problem, okay, which we know is smoking, anxiety, weight loss, money blocks, whatever it is. We know these as well, symptoms. So if we're too busy trying to use hypnotic language, we are then going to be resolving the symptom. Here's what a lot of people don't understand unless you're taught this way. You do not need to use hypnotic language or hypnotic suggestion to solve a client's problem. The mere fact of getting conscious insight into an unconscious problem resolves a problem. Now, this is very therapeutic. You know that I'm not a big fan of hypnosis. I don't use it all. I use therapy. So again, you have to learn this stuff. When you're using hypnotic language, you're going ahead to try and fix the symptom, which you think the problem is, versus investigating the unconscious payoff. Now, some people say, well, Scott, if I'm using your hypnotic interview and I'm asking the right questions and I'm getting unconscious moments, can I then put hypnotic language into my question to have a better effect? And my answer is always no, because what makes the hypnotic interview and the investigation of the unconscious path of what we know as root cause work so well is because you're not trying to solve the problem. As soon as I put hypnotic language into it, what am I doing? I'm now trying to do something. We want to do the opposite. We don't want to try it all or achieve anything. We want to investigate the problem instead of trying to solve it. That's very therapeutic 101, but that's what it works here, guys. Like I said, no therapy requires you to hide suggestions. No therapy breakthrough or therapeutic breakthrough requires you to sound like Erickson, requires you to use meta models, requires you to use clean language, hypnotic language. It doesn't matter what it is. As soon as you start to do this stuff, you are now trying to do something. Thus, you trigger psychotic insight, guys. And like I said, you sound like an idiot. The context of hypnotic language works nowhere. If you want to sound like a hypnotist in front of your friends and just play around with other colleagues, fine. But when it comes to clients, it is extremely obvious and it has the law of reverse effect. The harder you try, the worse it'll get, guys. Okay, so that's my idea of hypnotic language, guys. Forget about drilling it and really forget about ever worrying about it. You do not need it to have a therapy breakthrough. And in fact, you don't even need it to hypnotize somebody. You can do just as good a stuff without actually sounding like a hypnotist. All right, thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.